For those of you who are new to my videos, I'm Michelle Morisi, licensed acupuncturist and Chinese medicine practitioner in the greater Providence area, and I've been leading some classes here in this group on Chinese medicine diagnosis, pulse and tongue, and the 8 principles that you can check out either in this group or on Dr. Wu's YouTube channel, Dr. Wu Healing. Today, I'm going to get into the 5 elements a bit. So I usually refer to these with my Qigong classes as they are associated with each of the seasons and with different organs / meridians. So I wanted to give a little more background on the 5 elements. So wusheng is the term in Chinese that is translated as 5 elements or 5 phases or 5 processes. Very old theory in Chinese culture, and that's applied to Chinese medicine. And so in this system, each element is tied to a cardinal direction, to a season, to a phase of plant life, and many other things. So as I mentioned, like it's been applied to organs and meridians and lots of different things. So just briefly, the 5 elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, which is the one we're going to focus on today and for the next few classes, and finally water. And so wood is associated with the direction east, the birth of a plant, or like that sprout, that first sprout, and it's associated with the spring season. And then fire is associated with summer. It's the plant coming into maturity, or coming more into maturity, growth, blossoming, associated with flowers, and the summer season. And then earth is associated with the maturity and ripening of fruit of the plant, and the harvest season or the late summer period is also associated with the transition time between periods, and it is associated with the center rather than any specific direction. And fire, I didn't say, is associated with the south. And then metal is associated with the west, and the decay or degeneration phase and the autumn season. And then water finally is associated with the north direction. It's both associated with death and with the seed or germination. So that cycle beginning again, the potential in the seed, and associated with winter. And in this worldview of the 5 elements, everything is comprised of the 5 elements, right? Just like everything is comprised, or everything is yin or yang. Those are the 2 like most basic essential energies. And then it kind of further divides into the 5 elements. And so they are interdependent on one another, just like yin and yang. And so we could associate wood with plants, and these rely on the soil or earth and rain or water to grow. They may need some pruning, which is where metal comes in to thrive. And then wood, of course, is literally the source of fire, which gives way to ash and then becomes soil, which is enriched by minerals, which is associated with metal as well, and given structure by roots, which is associated with wood. And then earth provides a basin to hold space for lakes and ponds and different bodies of water, even oceans, which obviously is associated with the water element. And so in Chinese medicine, the elements are applied to our anatomy and physiology, which, of course, everything in Chinese medicine encompasses not only the physical, but mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of our being. So we can apply these elements to different areas. And so in this theory, we have all of the elements within us. And sometimes different ones get imbalanced, and there may be one that is kind of at the root of that imbalance and that is most predominant. And so we'll talk about how that's indicated, and particularly for the metal element. And so yeah, we'll focus in on metal. So the organs associated with metal are the lung and the large intestine. And the lung and large intestine, we'll talk about more in later classes, what the functions of them are, from physical to mental to emotional. But in general, the spectrum of emotion for the metal element ranges from like a sense of longing and pining to a kind of detachment and numbness. And so a healthy metal emotion is appreciation, reverence, or healthy grief. Virtues of metal are appreciation, acceptance, and respect. And so grief is known to be kind of the core emotion of metal, which, as I said, this can be a healthy grief. It's natural to, grieve the loss of something or someone you loved, but there's a certain degree of hanging on or attachment to the physical form of something that can become unhealthy. And so healthy metal recognizes, right, the value of the essence of something, regardless of the form or the shape. And so coming to kind of accept what is, and to have a sense of appreciation, awareness of the transience of our existence and the existence of everything in the natural world that has a physical form, and to use that awareness to more greatly appreciate and revere life, rather than to be detached or to be overly attached. So the metal element is, some say, like the most spiritual of the elements, puts us in touch with spirit and with the divine or the Tao. And so the two organs or meridians associated with the metal element, as I said, the lung and the large intestine, kind of reflect this healthy relationship to life, where the large intestine helps us to let go, and the lung helps us to take in new air, obviously, but on a spiritual level, inspiration and new life, and then let go of what no longer serves us. So in some styles of Chinese medicine, 5-element Chinese medicine, there's a system of diagnosis that is kind of different from, you know, the like pulse and tongue diagnosis that we've talked about. And the way that the diagnosis works in this system is through, it's called color, sound, odor, and emotion. So these 4 indicators, and each of those has a specific one associated with each element. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in another class. But the color is the color seen right by the eyes. And so it's not necessarily the complexion, right? It doesn't really matter what your skin color is, but there's like a presence of a certain color that can be seen by the eyes. A sound of the voice. I think I have a pretty good example of a metal voice, which is translated as a weep. It has a kind of descending energy. There can be like space, a lot of space between the words, and it might even sound like the person is on the verge of crying, even though they're not. And the voice might be soft, might like be a reflection of weak lung qi. So it's kind of hard to catch what the person's saying, and the end of the sentence or the word might kind of drift off in volume. So there's a whole energetic to the voice that is associated with each of the elements. And as with anything, there can be kind of a blend. But for the purpose of today, we'll just talk about metal and its correspondences. And then there's the odor, which is supposed to be the natural odor of a person, not like a body odor, obviously not a fragrance that they put on. And so this is, just their natural smell. And then finally the emotion, which could be kind of their predominant emotion, or it could be an emotion that shows up inappropriately, unexpectedly, or it's like their emotional sticking place or default that represents the emotion that they, or the element that might be their kind of root of their imbalance. And so if it's metal, the color by the eyes is called white. The sound of the voice, like I said, is called a weep. The natural odor is called rotten. And none of the odors sound really good for the most part. But it doesn't necessarily mean what it sounds like. And then the emotion, like I said, grief. But we might think of it in a more like healthy sense as appreciation. Appreciation, I think would be a good term. And so so we'll get more into that, what those all mean in the next class. But for today, we'll just talk a bit more about the metal element in general. And so we talked about in our bodies, it's represented by the lung and the large intestine. And in nature, metal is associated with, with like rocks, minerals, gems, and it is associated with the autumn season. And like I said, the color white is associated with it, not just like in the complexion, but in nature, white fog or mist. And so these, the rocks or the minerals and like trace elements found in the soil are maybe small in their amount, but they can add significant value to enrich the soil, and also in our bodies, right? Minerals can enrich certainly our health. And so value is something that's really key to the metal element. And a lot of times we can get a bit mixed up in what our values are if we have a metal imbalance, right? And place too much value on like money or jewelry or technology and on stuff rather than the essence of what's behind that. And so get fixated on things that, you know, society places value on, or other people seem to place value on. And thinking about gemstones, there's like a precision and a beauty and a preciousness to the metal element. And there's also in a healthy metal, like with gold, there's an ability to be malleable, so to reform, reshape, reinvent. So again, it's not about the specific shape. We can get fixated on the specific shape of things if our metal element is imbalanced, rather than really seeing the value behind the shape. And so there's this kind of wisdom to a healthy metal element, like a sage. And on a mental level, the metal element is can be very pragmatic, and also kind of seeking perfection. It can go into an imbalanced perfectionism, and just be like fixated on flaws, whereas there could be a healthy metal awareness of, you know, where things could be improved. And it might come across like criticism, but it's really just metal's way of expressing, you know, trying to help. And so balanced qualities of also other balanced qualities of the metal element mentally are being in touch with inspiration, being able to, you know, just take in and recognize what is. And like the phrase, it is what it is like to truly feel that is metal, healthy metal, rather than being like resigned to feeling like you can't change things. It's just an acceptance of what is, and the ability to let go of thoughts and behaviors that no longer serve us. Imbalanced metal energy on a mental level will be struggling with self-esteem, self-respect, and holding on to messages of, you know, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, and feeling like you're bad. That can be a metal imbalance. So just like we don't want to hold on, we don't want to be physically constipated, holding on to toxicity. We don't want to be mentally constipated either, holding on to like toxic thoughts. And then on a spiritual and emotional level, I guess that also is emotional. Metal, like I was saying earlier, connects us with the divine or the Tao, and helps us to understand, or provides us the ability to understand and appreciate, you know, that we're part of life, which is so much larger than our little piece of existence, and to see things as they are. The ability to appreciate and be inspired, the ability to let go, to trust in spirit, also like an interest in the meaning of things, without getting too bogged down in like, what does this all mean? Like, and obsessed with everything having a meaning, that we can get, obsessed with that and looking for signs and stuff like that. So just a healthy curiosity in the meaning of things, what's going on like behind the surface. Also thinking about one of Dr. Wu's principles of Qigong, Kong, that idea of, or not idea, but that quality of there is everything in the emptiness, and there's emptiness in the everything, like being the blank page, as Dr. Wu will always say, so that like it's in that blankness that you can be filled, that the Tao can come through. So this idea of keeping yourself empty to allow spirit, the Tao, whatever you call it, to come through. And like I was saying before, having a sense of self-respect and self-worth. And on an imbalanced side, feeling kind of hollow. So feeling this emptiness that, not in like a fulfilling way of you're in connection with spirit, but just feeling empty, and because of this void, wanting to perhaps just accumulate and hold on to stuff. So like I was saying earlier, this assigning value to stuff like money, jewelry, technology, and just accumulating those things in order to try to fill that void. So I'm going to pause there, and we'll do some Qigong to support the lung and large intestine.